Welcome back to another Post Media One-on-One. I'm Bruce Garrioch. Pleased to be joined today by TSN's Ottawa Bureau Chief Claire Hanna. And Claire, nice to see you again. And as we speak today, the Ottawa Senators are sitting in a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference, and they are certainly in the mix for a playoff spot. Let's start with we're just past the halfway point. What have you liked about the Senators so far this season?
Well, their commitment to defense. I think that was one of the things that head coach Travis Green came in and really wanted to change about this team. It was one of the faults we've seen over the past couple of seasons, just their leakiness on defense and their goaltending. Now, of course, in getting Linus Ullmark, that was a huge upgrade. We haven't seen a lot of him this season, but I still think that the goals allowed by the Senators has been impressive, and you can tell that the players have changed their systems, and that rather than making sloppy plays or just trying to get that offense going or trying to, do a jailbreak situation. There's a PWHL term for you. That they've had more of this commitment to playing away from the puck and really making sure that other teams don't score on them so frequently. And that's a huge part of the National Hockey League is playing defense. So for me, that's been the biggest difference. Maturity, I'm going to say I think they've taken a bit of a step forward in that department too. That's something they've also mentioned the past few years, learning to play down by a goal and come back. And I do think they've truly taken a step forward in that. I'm sure we would have liked to see a couple games where there was more of that maturity. Last night against the Rangers, perfect point right there. You come off two great wins to put yourself in an amazing position, and you kind of lay an egg. But that's where I'm going to say, how do they respond against the Bruins on Thursday?
Well, and it's interesting, Claire, because one of the things that I think they've been relying on as well, two things. Number one, I think what we've learned is they've been shut out 4 times in the last 10 games. And that, to me, is living a little bit dangerously because you're relying on timely scoring and good goaltending. And let's start with the goaltending, and then we'll get to the scoring. Levy Merilainen has been surprise isn't the right word. You're the wordsmith here.
A revelation?
Yes, he's been absolutely very well done. I knew you would help me here. He's been a revelation. He has. I mean, we didn't expect this. And I look at Levy Merilainen, and he has thrown a wrench into where their goaltending is. Number one, let's start with him. Number one, what have you liked about him? I like that he's calm and cool.
Well, I want to say, I don't think I would say he's thrown a wrench into things. He's thrown a very a beautiful surprise into the mix that's created some uncomfortable situations for possibly other goaltenders like Anton Forsberg. But this is what sports is about. It's about healthy competition internally, because that healthy competition is going to push you and it's going to make you an even harder team to play against. And I don't talk a lot about my volleyball days, Bruce, but I'm going to just kind of mention it. I've been on teams where I'm the number one libero. That was my position. And it was just like, you kind of have this freedom mentally. You know that you can make mistakes and that you're going to be okay, but you play really well. But then when you start to get into a competitive environment and somebody is pushing you, boy, do you come in focused. So I think that this could be a really good situation for Anton Forsberg, because right now we know he's the one being pushed. But Linus Ullmark, we haven't seen him since mid-December. I think he's thinking, okay, wow, look at this. We got a goalie coming in who's going to be the backup. He might even, I think he's so confident in his bulk of work that he knows he's still the number one. But I think this is even going to push him to want to be at his best when he eventually returns. But for a player to come in, I was looking at Levy's stats this morning. He has only played 12 games in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
10 of them have been this season. Of those, he has 6 wins, 3 losses. 1 went to overtime. That was a loss against the Capitals, where I'm going to blame myself because I talked about how many shutouts he had. And I was like, and he's looking really good tonight. Now, people love me on Twitter, but
it was a shootout, though, wasn't it?
Sorry, you're right. It was a shootout. Or no. That was against the Capitals when they lost. Alexander Ovechkin scored. So in a way, I'm like, okay, he still had shutout till we got to overtime, whatever. I know it doesn't technically count, but he has just been remarkable. And whatever his sports psychologist is doing or whatever he's telling himself mentally, he needs to write a book, because I think a lot of young players can look at that. I think even current players in the National Hockey League could take a page out of that for what he has done. Just so calm, so cool. I know, last night 5-0 against the Rangers, but I'm going to put a bit more of that on the team.
We've both had our back and forths with Travis Green. He's not the most forthcoming when it comes to injuries. I think at this point, and just based on the footage we saw in TSN last night, Claire, I don't see Linus Ullmark playing this weekend. I thought he may play against Utah when he went on this trip. We'll see if he's in practice on Wednesday. But as it stands now, there's no timeline for Linus Ullmark. And quite frankly, they've needed everything Levy Merilainen has given them.
Yeah, I'm cautious to jump to a lot of conclusions based on just a little bit of video footage from one practice.
Yeah.
Because we know, according to Steve Staios, that Linus Ullmark has been practicing on his own for about 2 weeks now. So that's a decent amount. Just a couple of drills in front of public with coaches. I don't think that's super telling. But I won't disagree with you in the fact that this is a goalie that likes to take his time getting back. We saw that earlier in November when he missed a chunk of games, and how long we saw him. I think it was 3 team practices before he was playing again. So given that track record, I think he's going to want a couple of practices. Even he said to us, again, when he came back in the end of November, he's like, you know what, you guys practicing in a game is totally different. I want to feel like I'm really good. This is a goalie who is more cautious with his body than others. So I want to go a bit more deep psychologically, though. He wants to play at the Four Nations. He wants to represent Sweden. If I'm him, I'm like, okay, well, let's get this going. Because if I don't play for the Senators, how can I justify playing for the Four Nations for Sweden? Because I think the fan base would be super upset about that. They're like, who pays your bills? And I know that there's a lot of pride playing for your national team. I've done it. But it's a tricky thing, because what's your motivation? What are you trying to get back for? Are you trying to help this team to a playoff spot for the first time since 2017? Or are you trying to get back for the Four Nations? I don't know what's going through his mind, but I think he's got to make sure his priorities are equal.
Well, and I said it on question period, and I have no problem saying it here. There is no bloody way he should play in the Four Nations. Not a chance. Look, you are now probably 3 weeks away from this tournament. He now hasn't played since 30 days today, is since December 22nd. If I'm Steve Staios, and I know Steve was asked about this a couple weeks ago in his midseason interviews and said he hasn't even thought about it. Well, I sure as hell hope he's thought about it, and I sure as hell hope that Linus Ullmark has thought about it and doesn't. And to me, there's no bloody way he should play in the Four Nations. The thought that he would, to me, there's something wrong with that.
You know what? There is no way they haven't thought about it. They have for sure thought about it. They're just not telling us their thoughts. And I'm keen to see what happens. But keep in mind, just want to refresh people on the nation or the Four Nations roster for Sweden. Jacob Markstrom, and it's Gustafsson, right?
Yes. So yeah, I mean, there's a chance it can be number 3.
Yeah, and that is maybe a discussion that he has with Sweden, because he's like, okay, can I go represent? I don't know if you can just say, yeah, take me on the team, but don't play me, because then why would a coach?
Well, but then he gets some practice time though too. I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing either.
I know, and I'm trying to think that route, because right now, given his body of work recently, I could see him being the third goalie and offering kind of what he's doing with the Senators right now, because we continue to hear that he's a voice in the room, that he's still a leader, that he's there. So maybe he does that with Sweden, because that Linus is looking ahead to the Olympics. He wants to be on that roster. So I don't necessarily think, even if he goes to the Four Nations, he's going to play, but it might fulfill some of his future ambitions with that team.
Okay, Claire, we both like Anton Forsberg. We both think he's a wonderful guy. We know he works hard because we see it every day.
Are you setting us up to be like, okay, let's take our emotional
but
out of
what
this?
Are we going to do with them? What are we going to do with them? We don't make that decision. But what do you think the Senators are going to do with them?
Hmm.
Um, do you keep three goalies? Do you? My personal take on this is ask them to go to Belleville on conditioning for a couple weeks because you can do that. You can ask a player to accept a conditioning stint, and it's up to them. And even if he doesn't want to ride the bus, just have him play home games and practice with them.
Yeah.
Or do you keep three goalies?
Well, I think that Anton Forsberg so far this season has been streaky. He's had some consistent years, but he has been up and down. And at one point this season, it was either shutouts or an 8.65 save percentage, which is you got to find a middle spot. You don't need to shut out every game, but
Yeah,
you got to move a little bit this way rather than having this extreme, um, performance. So, but I actually think that Forsberg typically does better down the stretch at the end of a season. And I personally think that you keep him because what if somebody gets injured? What if
yeah, oh
Linus
yeah,
gets injured again? I don't know if you want to put your trust in Mad Sogard. Those are situations where I think Anton Forsberg, he had a really nice bounce back game against New Jersey. Again, that's that streakiness, but let him get some of his confidence back. Maybe that does happen in Belleville, like you mentioned, Bruce, if he can be sent down there. But it's tricky because what this organization has done in the past, it's like Corpusalo, Matt Murray, and then
yeah, yeah,
spend a
yeah.
lot of money on a goalie that doesn't end up working out, and then you have to eat some of that contract, trade them away. And so I think right now Anton's in a good position with the Senators. Like I say good, and I'm probably going to get eaten alive for that, but I think he can provide more for this, and that's not thinking about the person that he is.
Well, and let's get to the elephant in the room, or maybe not in the room, is the scoring. Uh, Brady Kachuk has Brady Kachuk has as we speak today, Claire. Brady Kachuk has no goal, no points in 8 games. Drake Batherson, I'm not very good at math, Claire, but I think he's got one goal in 18 games. Tim Stützle has 3 goals in his last 15. Shane Pinto has not been scoring to the capability
Mm-hmm.
that we expected. I think we always give Claude Giroux a pass because of who he is and his body of work as a veteran player, but he hasn't been scoring either. And if Josh Norris is hurt, then there's a good chance that Ridley Gregg gets moved back to center. So, and I don't think that's a bad thing for Ridley Gregg. May get him on the score sheet more. Bottom line is they aren't scoring goals, and to me, that's the biggest shock of anything this season, Claire. Because the last thing I ever thought these guys would have a problem doing is scoring goals.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to one thing, and I'm maybe giving them a bit of an out, but it's that commitment to defense, learning new systems. The reason that their numbers are down is I think they're playing a different system that is protecting their goalie and their offensive zone, or sorry, their defensive zone more. Now, am I surprised that some of these guys haven't gotten going? I am. There was a lot of line shuffles during the season, and I think
Yeah.
that was an indication of Travis Green trying to find chemistry, trying to find what would click between players. I've always seen Josh Norris and Drake Batherson as a really good pairing. They've been split up for a while. Maybe put them back together.
Yeah, yeah.
They know each other so well. To me, whenever they're on the ice together, there's a little magic that happens. I think, they keep saying the things like we got to get to the net, we got to crash more, we got to, even Brady mentioning, he says from his perspective, he feels he's biased because it's just about getting tighter to the net, but he plays in that position right in front of the goalie. Well, is it like maybe the system needs to be tweaked a little bit? Because if you're not getting that scoring, you're not going to win games. You can have the best goaltending in the world, but you got to put the puck in the net. And something has to change. And I'm just saying from a system perspective, because I think those guys, I see the passion where they're trying a lot, but they're trying to be committed to the defensive structure right now. And that might be a distraction that's taking them away from thinking offensively.
One of the things I didn't put on our list, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up, is as we speak, Claire, the National Capital Commission will meet on Wednesday and Thursday with hopefully some kind of update on where the LeBreton Flats project is at. You had Senators owner Michael Andlauer on the TSN broadcast on January 9th, and he made some cryptic comments regarding the National Capital Commission and negotiations. I've since ascertained that one of the things that he was kind of getting at is they hope to have a deal done by last Thursday. they were thinking if they had a deal done by January 16th, Claire, that today and tomorrow at the meeting, it would get completed by the board of directors. Everybody would be happy. The sale would begin. And there are still hurdles to climb. Are you surprised that it is taking this long with the National Capital Commission?
Well, you're an Ottawa product, so you're more familiar with the government here. But I think that sometimes these things do take a lot of time because this is land that's owned by the government. And I'm starting to wonder if the government is trying to up the cost of this land. Like, because the
Yeah.
one thing that Michael Andlauer mentioned was, well, they want to get fair market value for LeBreton Flats. And so
Yeah,
that,
we all went.
yeah, that gave me, has all of a sudden the NCC upped the price?
Yeah.
Has something changed? Because he, for the first time, gave me the impression that he wasn't confident or sold on using that space. Now, maybe this is posturing because that's a interview
Yeah.
that a lot of people are going to listen to. And all of a sudden the NCC is like, whoa, like I think that land needs to be used for something. And this is probably the closest they've ever been to having a great facility on that land. NCC, are you going to get that again anytime soon? Here's an owner with deep pockets and just sell them the land.
Yeah.
Stop upping the price, because I think Michael Andlauer has a lot of connections in that he's like, okay, fine, I'll move it, or we're just going to keep it in Canada. This is something that's great for the city. Batman talked about how when he went to a Taylor Swift concert in Toronto, he saw how much traffic that brought, and that's the kind of thing that a downtown arena is going to do. I've witnessed it firsthand in Winnipeg. I was living there when the Jets came back, and how many restaurants blew up downtown. It was amazing. I witnessed it firsthand in Edmonton. I was living there when they had Rexall, and then they moved the arena downtown as well. Also watched how revitalized that made downtowns. It's such an impact. And so I'm getting frustrated as somebody who would also like to watch Ottawa grow and reap the benefits of a little downtown partying after a game. Okay. I'm going to be selfish. I want to see it. Let's go.
Oh, you're too busy at the local Legion, Claire, for goodness sakes. Hey, you disappointed me though when Bettman was in town, because I thought after you heard he went to the Taylor Swift concert, you might give him the friend bracelet.
Friendship bracelet.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I found out that he went to the Taylor Swift concert in that press conference, and I didn't know friendship bracelets. I would have made him one that said GB Hearts NHL or something, you know? Or commish.
All right.
Commish.
Okay, Claire, listen, before we go, I think I'd be remiss if I did not ask you. You told our good friends at Locked On Sens the story about Hank and Bobby, Drake Batherson, and the police showed up while you were taping your.
Yeah, let's get the
It's
characters.
a great feature with the you did a great one with Linus Ullmark, and you also did a really nice one with Drake and his dog Bobby.
Yeah, so I just want viewers who might not be familiar with some of the characters we're talking about. Hank is my dog, a Portuguese water dog. Bobby is Drake Batherson's dog, a Frenchie. And we were doing this segment called where I do a dog walk with Hank and one of the Senators and their dogs. And unfortunately, the police unexpectedly showed up at my shoot with Drake. And that is because I have a watch. This is not an ad, but this is a Garmin watch. I do a lot of outdoor activities that are often in remote locations with no cell service. So I have emergency contacts set up on my watch where if I'm in an accident, they're notified and given my exact location until I say that that I'm okay. For some reason, my watch emergency setting went off during this dog shoot, and I didn't notice because we're doing an interview with cameras rolling. And I noticed that my watch was beeping after about 5 minutes, and I just turned it off. I said, okay, no, I'm not in an emergency. It's okay. Do not notify my emergency contacts. Well, then I see that my phone has rung off the hook. And one of my friends in BC, she's called 7 times. My mom has called 7 times. My dad and mom have both texted me asking if I'm okay, saying, Claire, we can see your location at McKellar Park. You're not moving. Please text us to know you're okay. And then my mom calls while I see this, and I said, okay, Mom, I'm fine. She's like, oh my gosh, okay, good. And I'm like, sorry, I'm in the middle of the shoot. And then I see that she's texted me before this call and she said, Claire, we haven't heard from you. The police are on their way to McKellar Park. And when I
Shouldn't
see that,
laugh.
and
But
I see
hey,
that,
that's your mom.
I know, and of course that's what like. Of course that's the right thing to do. They haven't heard from me, and apparently I'm not moving in McKellar Park. So I announced this to Drake and Dave Joy, our camera guy, and some of the Sens PR that are there. I said, "Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm sorry, my watch went off. The police are on their way." Well, we look up as a police vehicle is showing up. I was like, let me go run over and handle this. And Hank's coming with me. And yeah, it was really embarrassing. Dave Joy, our camera guy, rolled on the whole thing. So we've got the footage. It does exist. And I'm mic'd up so you can hear my conversation. But I apologized a lot. And yeah. And I'm kind of in trouble from my parents because they're like, Claire, like, you know, the police could have been at a real emergency. And here they were with you at the dog park. But so I feel really bad, but that's the story. And Drake was a good sport about it. Everybody was a good sport about it.
Well, that is a great way to finish off a great conversation. Claire Hanna of TSN, thank you for joining me today. Post Media One-on-One. I'm Bruce Garrioch.